Evil is rarely loud. It doesn't enter the room screaming. It enters observing. A truly dangerous person understands one thing better than most people ever will. Human emotion is a weapon. And the moment someone learns how to manipulate guilt, fear, attention, or trust without remorse, you are no longer dealing with insecurity. You are dealing with predatory behavior. Most people think remorse is automatic. They assume that when someone causes pain, there must be an internal consequence: guilt, shame, emotional discomfort, something. But one of the most dangerous misunderstandings in human psychology is believing that everyone suffers after hurting another person. Some people don't, and if you watch closely, you'll notice the signs almost immediately. A person without genuine remorse does not react to pain the way normal people do. They react to exposure. That's the difference most people miss. They are not disturbed by the damage they caused. They are disturbed by losing control of how they are perceived. So when they apologize, the apology sounds technically correct, but emotionally empty. There's no weight behind it, no hesitation, no internal conflict leaking through the body. Why? Their breathing stays calm. Their posture stays relaxed. They maintain eye contact too carefully, almost like an actor staying in character. And while you're focused on the words, they're focused on your reaction. They study what works on you. If sadness works, they become sad. If vulnerability works, they suddenly reveal trauma. If anger intimidates you, they weaponize aggression. Their personality shifts depending on what gives them influence in the moment. That adaptability fools people into thinking they're emotionally intelligent, when in reality, they're strategically observant. Real remorse creates discomfort because empathy forces a person to emotionally experience the consequences of their actions. But a manipulative mind experiences something entirely different: calculation. They don't ask themselves, "Did I hurt this person?" They ask, "How do I regain control of this situation?" That is why some people can lie repeatedly while appearing calm. Most honest people assume nervousness exposes deception, but experienced manipulators know emotional control is power. They rehearse expressions. They monitor tone. They understand that humans trust confidence more than truth. And the frightening part is many of them learn this early. They discovered that charm erases suspicion faster than honesty does. Watch how they behave after betrayal. A healthy person usually gives space, reflects, feels tension and silence. But someone without remorse becomes irritated when consequences continue after the apology. They want emotional reset without accountability. They become impatient with your healing because your pain is inconvenient to their comfort. Sometimes they even accuse you of living in the past simply because you remember what they did clearly. This is how psychological manipulation works, not through obvious evil, but through the gradual erosion of your trust in your own perception. And over time, people around them start adapting to survive the emotional instability. They become quieter, more careful, less expressive. They begin managing the manipulator's emotions instead of their own. That's when the real damage begins, because the victim slowly loses connection with their instincts. They stop asking, "Why would someone treat me this way?" and start asking, "Maybe I'm overreacting." That question alone has trapped millions of people inside toxic relationships, friendships, families, and power structures. The truth is, remorse is not proven by words. It is revealed by behavioral change, emotional discomfort, and consistent accountability when nobody is watching. And if someone can repeatedly harm people, sleep peacefully, perform kindness publicly, and then calmly explain away the destruction they caused, you are no longer dealing with weakness. You are dealing with someone who learned how to imitate humanity without fully feeling it. One of the clearest signs you are dealing with a psychologically dangerous person is this: they can turn simple truths into emotional chaos. Normal communication creates clarity. Even difficult conversations, when handled honestly, eventually become understandable. But manipulative people do something different. They distort reality until you feel mentally exhausted trying to hold on to what you know is true. You ask a direct question, and instead of receiving a direct answer, you receive a performance, a story, a deflection, a counterattack, a sudden emotional reaction designed to pull you away from the original issue. And most people don't recognize this as strategy. They mistake it for misunderstanding, stress, trauma, or poor communication. But confusion is often intentional, because a confused mind is easier to control than a confident one. The moment a person can make you question your memory, your instincts, or your interpretation of events, they gain psychological leverage over you. This is why manipulators rarely argue facts directly. Facts are dangerous to them. Facts create structure. Structure creates accountability. So instead, they attack certainty itself. They interrupt timelines, change details, deny things they clearly said, or they respond to your concern with statements that force you into emotional defense. You say, "You lied to me." And suddenly the conversation becomes, "So now I'm a terrible person. Notice what just happened." The focus shifted away from behavior and onto your emotional reaction. That shift is not accidental. Skilled manipulators know that if they can emotionally overload you, your brain loses precision. Human beings cannot think clearly while emotionally flooded. This is why after certain conversations, you walk away replaying every detail in your head, trying to figure out how a simple issue became so complicated. Meanwhile, the manipulator, feels calm again because confusion was the objective all along. There's a reason emotionally dangerous people often speak in contradictions. One day, they praise you. The next day, they criticize the same trait they once admired. One moment, they promise loyalty. The next moment, they disappear, deny commitment, or accuse you of being too sensitive for expecting consistency. This instability forces your nervous system into hypervigilance. You start monitoring tone, facial expressions, pauses, text messages, searching for emotional safety in an environment designed to keep you uncertain. And uncertainty creates dependency. The human brain naturally seeks resolution. So the more unpredictable someone becomes, the more mental energy you invest trying to understand them. That obsession is not love. It's cognitive captivity. Dangerous people understand this better than most psychologists admit. They know the human mind will tolerate enormous pain if it believes clarity is just one conversation away. But clarity never comes because confusion is the mechanism of control. Watch how these individuals react when you become emotionally calm. The moment you stop defending self, stop explaining, stop chasing resolution, they often become irritated or escalate behavior. Why? Because emotional detachment breaks the manipulation cycle. A calm person is difficult to destabilize. Silence removes the fuel. And manipulators survive on emotional movement, your frustration, your need to be understood, your desperation to restore peace. The uncomfortable truth is that many people spend years trying to communicate clearly with someone whose real goal was never understanding. It was dominance. And once you realize that some people deliberately create confusion to weaken your confidence, you stop asking, "Why is this conversation so hard?" and start asking the question that changes everything. Why does this person benefit when I doubt myself? Because the moment someone consistently makes simple truths feel complicated, they are no longer communicating with you. They are conditioning you. There is a type of person most people never identify correctly because their cruelty doesn't look dramatic. It looks controlled, measured, even calm. They don't always attack openly. In fact, the truly dangerous ones rarely do. Instead, they experience something much darker. They in silent satisfaction from another person's emotional pain. And the disturbing part is that they often hide it behind concern, humor, advice, or emotional distance. Most people assume human beings naturally feel discomfort when witnessing suffering, but that is not universally true. Some individuals experience a subtle psychological reward when they see someone weakened, embarrassed, insecure, rejected, or emotionally unstable. You can often spot it in moments others ignore. A slight smirk when someone gets humiliated in public, a sudden burst of energy during conflict, an unusual calmness while another person is crying. They lean in closer during emotional chaos, not because they care, but because pain gives them stimulation. For some people, emotional suffering creates a sense of power. And once you understand this, many human behaviors suddenly become terrifyingly clear. You start realizing why certain people provoke arguments before important events, why they subtly insult their partner right before social gatherings, why do they bring up insecurities during moments of vulnerability, why they accidentally create tension. Then sit back and observe the emotional reaction, like a scientist studying an experiment. This is not random behavior. It is emotional predation. The average person seeks connection. A person seeks control. But the darkest personalities seek emotional dominance, the feeling of psychologically affecting another human being. That feeling becomes addictive to them, especially if they feel powerless in other areas of life. This is why some people constantly create emotional instability around them. Chaos gives them relief from their own emptiness. If they feel insecure, they provoke insecurity in others. If they feel emotionally dead inside, they seek emotional reactions from people around them. Just something. Watch carefully how they behave after hurting someone. A healthy person usually attempts repair, shows discomfort, or withdraws with guilt. But a person who secretly enjoys pain often becomes more focused, more alert, even more charismatic after emotional damage occurs. Their posture relaxes. Their voice becomes smoother. Why? Because they are no longer emotionally hungry in that moment. Your reaction fed something in them. This is why emotionally manipulative people often push boundaries gradually. They test reactions. A disrespectful joke, a cruel comment disguised as honesty, a small betrayal. They watch your tolerance level carefully, and if there are no consequences, the behavior escalates, because every successful act of emotional control reinforces their sense of power. Most victims never realize this is happening because they keep interpreting the behavior through empathy. They think, maybe they're hurt, or maybe they didn't mean it. But dangerous people rely on that interpretation. Your empathy becomes camouflage for their behavior. The uncomfortable truth is that some individuals do not bond through love, trust, or loyalty. They bond through emotional dependency and psychological influence. They feel connected to people they can destabilize. That's why they often become bored around emotionally grounded individuals. Calm people cannot be emotionally harvested, and this is where emotional detachment becomes critical. The moment you stop reacting emotionally, the manipulator often loses interest, escalates behavior, or searches for a new target entirely. Because control requires access to your nervous system. The deepest mistake people make is assuming everyone experiences pain in the same way they do. They don't. Some people see kindness as weakness, patience as permission, and emotional reactions as entertainment. And once you understand that there are individuals who feel stronger when you feel broken, you stop trying to win their compassion, because you finally realize compassion was never part of their psychology to begin with. One of the most dangerous people you will ever meet is not the one who opposes you openly. It's the one who becomes you too quickly. Most people interpret instant connection as destiny, chemistry, or emotional compatibility. But in behavioral psychology, rapid familiarity is often something far more strategic. Highly manipulative individuals understand a hidden truth about human nature. People trust those who feel familiar. So instead of earning trust naturally over time, they manufacture it. They study you carefully. Your values, your insecurities, your ambitions, the way you speak when you're excited, the things that hurt you, the things you secretly wish someone would finally understand. And then they reflect those things back to you with terrifying precision. Suddenly, they love the same books, share the same beliefs, understand your humor, your pain, even your childhood wounds. It feels rare, almost supernatural. But what most people experience as deep connection is sometimes nothing more than advanced observation mixed with calculated imitation. This is why some relationships feel intensely close almost immediately. The manipulator skips the natural process of emotional trust building and goes directly into psychological synchronization. They know that when someone feels emotionally seen, critical thinking weakens. The human brain is wired to relax around familiarity. That relaxation creates access, and access creates influence. Watch how these individuals gather information. They ask questions that appear emotionally intimate very early. They listen with unusual focus, not because they care deeply yet, but because information is leverage. Every insecurity you reveal becomes a future pressure point. Every dream becomes a tool for attachment. Every fear becomes a map. Then the mirroring begins. Your phrases become their phrases. Your worldview becomes their worldview. Even their body language subtly adapts to yours. Most people never consciously notice this because mirroring is naturally connected with social bonding. But excessive mirroring creates an unnatural sense of emotional acceleration. It feels like you've known them forever. That feeling is exactly what they want because once emotional attachment forms quickly, boundaries disappear just as quickly. And this is where the manipulation becomes dangerous. The same person who once mirrored your strengths eventually begins controlling your emotions through the information you trusted them with. They know exactly how to comfort you because they studied your pain. They know exactly how to guilt you because they learned your emotional triggers. They know what silence affects you, what rejection destabilizes you, what approval keeps you attached. It stops being connection and becomes behavioral conditioning. The frightening part is that many manipulative people don't even appear aggressive. They appear emotionally intelligent, attentive, deeply caring. But true emotional intelligence respects identity. Manipulation absorbs identity. That's the difference. Healthy people reveal themselves gradually. Their individuality remains stable over time. But manipulators are shapeshifters. They become whoever the situation requires. You hires. Around one person, they are spiritual. Around another, hyperlogical. Around another, wounded and vulnerable. Not because they are complex, but because they are adaptive. Their personality is often built around gaining emotional access rather than expressing authenticity. And eventually, the mask slips. The perfect similarities begin disappearing. Contradictions emerge. Their behavior becomes inconsistent. The person who once understood you completely suddenly uses your vulnerabilities against you. That's when victims become confused because they keep searching for the original version of the person they met. But the original version was often a reflection designed specifically for them. This is why emotionally grounded people move slowly with trust. They understand that genuine connection can survive time, boundaries, disagreement, and individuality. Artificial connection cannot. It requires constant performance. The truth most people never realize is that dangerous individuals rarely force their way into your life. They study your desires so carefully that you open the door for them yourself. And sometimes the person who understands you the fastest is the one who is nearest, revealing themselves at all. One of the clearest signs you are dealing with a psychologically controlling person is what happens the moment you become independent. As long as you are emotionally available, seeking approval, explaining yourself, or orbiting around their emotional state, everything appears calm. They seem supportive, engaged, sometimes even deeply loving. But the second you begin thinking for yourself, setting boundaries, becoming emotionally stable, or no longer needing constant validation from them, their behavior changes almost instantly, and most people never recognize what they are witnessing. They think the relationship is going through a rough phase, when in reality they are watching a hidden power structure collapse, because controlling individuals often mistake access for ownership. To them, your independence feels like disobedience. Your confidence feels like betrayal. Your emotional detachment feels like loss of control. This is why some people become cold the moment you stop chasing them. Why they suddenly withdraw affection after you say no. Why they create tension right after you gain confidence, succeed, improve your appearance, or emotionally recover from something painful. They are not reacting to your behavior alone. They are reacting to the threat of losing psychological influence over you. And the disturbing part is that many of them do this unconsciously. They may genuinely believe they love you while simultaneously punishing every sign of your freedom. Watch how they behave when you stop over-explaining yourself. Healthy people respect boundaries because boundaries create trust and emotional safety. Manipulative people experience boundaries as rejection. So instead of respecting your independence, they attempt to emotionally condition you back into compliance. Sometimes the punishment is obvious: anger, criticism, intimidation. But the most dangerous punishments are subtle: silence, emotional withdrawal, passive aggression, sudden mood shifts, delayed responses, tiny acts designed to make you feel emotionally unstable without being able to clearly explain why. This is psychological conditioning at its highest level. Human beings are wired to seek emotional harmony. So when someone repeatedly creates discomfort every time you assert yourself, your nervous system slowly learns that independence leads to emotional pain. Over time, people begin abandoning their own needs just to restore peace. They speak less carefully. They apologize for things that don't require apology. They ask permission for basic decisions. And eventually they confuse emotional exhaustion with love. This is how control becomes invisible, not through chains, but through emotional consequences. The manipulator trains you to associate self-respect with conflict. And the frightening part is that many victims adapt so gradually they don't even notice the transformation happening inside them. They stop asking, why am I shrinking around this person? Because survival becomes more important than awareness. Controlling personalities also reveal themselves through competition with your